In terms of the way the EU has managed the current, and what I like to call the so-called refugee crisis, I have to say one of the things that really does come out is how very often migration policy is reactive instead of proactive. That it was clear as early as 2012 that with the Syrian crisis, the civil war, with the combination of Dublin and Schengen, there was going to be something that needed to be addressed. I'm not going to call it directly a crisis, but it's clear that there was something that was going to have to be addressed. But the actual recognition of that was put off for several years because it wasn't an immediate enough need. And that's something that I think is simply endemic in any kind of governance of migration. And I think that's perhaps the biggest lesson that we can draw out of this is to look forward to what issues are coming our way in terms of migration that we need to address, rather than having to deal with the crisis in the very moment of its happening. So the two key challenges, I'd say, in the refugee crisis, one is certainly the question of solidarity, and that of responsibility sharing within the European Union, within 28, 27 members of the European Union, do need to find a way to share that responsibility. Whether it is in terms of contributing personnel, whether it is in terms of accepting asylum seekers, relocation, all of these are things that really do need to be addressed, that they have been well, they will need to continue to be addressed. So that's certainly one point. The other point, I think, is very much the way that migration is presented and is spoken about. That migration really is a very complex and very multifaceted issue, as we know. But so often we only look at one aspect of it. We look at the challenge side of it. We don't look at the opportunities. We look at vulnerabilities. We don't look at opportunities. And these are really that's the other flip side of it, that we really need to think about migration in a more holistic way, and recognize that demographic changes in Europe mean that all migrants are needed, whether they are refugees, whether they are high-skilled, whether they are low-skilled workers, regardless of where they come from. And that's something that accepting those individuals and accepting that they're part of Europe, recognizing that integration and integration policies are needed, is one step forward. In terms of migration governance, I think we're moving toward a more holistic manner of migration governance, and that really is something that understandably that policy must be divided into certain pillars. It's simply not workable otherwise. But unfortunately, migration doesn't fall into those neat little pillars. That migration is multi-causal. People may fall into multiple categories. They may be family migrants and highly skilled migrants. They might be refugees and highly skilled migrants. And that's something that we need to recognize moving forward. And I think that's something that in terms of legal migration channels, in terms of moving beyond three durable solutions for refugees, that we can start thinking about the ways in which we can bring labor migration and refugee protection together. How do we think about family migration in a slightly different way to make sure that people are joining the labor market. Moving forward, I think the holistic way of thinking about all migration, and under that we may have different categories, but right now we still look at migration in such a fragmented way, and that's something that we really do need to start thinking about in a more holistic manner, and legal channels are very, very much a key part of that.